Good morning, guys. After reading your comments yesterday, most of you wanted to hear the first chapter of the first book. Of course, we went a little bit backwards because we started with the second book because that's what came with our My View books. But then we liked it so much that I bought the third one, and I have bought the first one. But of course, we don't have time to read the entire book this year, unfortunately. So, but you did want to hear the very first chapter of the first book. So we'll go ahead and read it now. And then if you guys wanted to borrow it from me next year, you are more than welcome to if you wanted to read the entire book. Okay, so Starry River of the Sky. Chapter 1. Rindy, not sure how long the moon had been missing, he knew only that for weeks the wind seemed to be whimpering as if the sky were suffering. At first he thought the moans were his own because his whole body ached from hiding in the merchant's moving cart. However, it was when the cart had stopped for the evening, when the bumping and knocking had ended, that the groans began. The sky had moaned and cried for many nights before Rindy finally dared to peek out. When he heard the donkey being led away, trying to get it on there, and the nighttime wells beginning again, Rindy crawled from behind the gangs of wine, huge pottery vessels as big as he was, and poked out his head from the covered cart. Yet when he looked up into the sky, he saw nothing. The stars had dimmed to little more than faded shadows, and the mournful noises echoed in the blackness. It was then that Rindy realized the moon was missing. He thought it would appear the next night, or the night after. Rindy was sure the moon would return, as it always had, glowing as if it were cut from the sky with a pair of sharp scissors. But it did not. Every evening, after the merchant had left, Rindy crept from the stifling, sticky cart into the fresh night air and peeked up, and every time the starry river of the sky was empty. "You must have wine," a voice said. The merchant. In the cart, Rindy froze. Another moonless night had passed, and the darkness inside the covered cart had thinned. With the morning's arrival, the hitching of the donkey had jerked Rindy awake, his head knocking against one of the clay vests. But it was the sound of the voices that alarmed him. Let me get it to the page. "It is the day of the 5 poisons. I could sell you a gang," the smooth voice of the merchant said. "I own an inn, not a tavern," another voice replied. "I don't need a gang of wine. That's too much." "Ah, but having some wine stocked does not make your place a tavern," the merchant replied. "You offer tea and food in the dining room of your inn, do you not? Offer wine as well, and your guests will gladly pay." "I just need enough wine to protect us from the noxious animals," the innkeeper said. "For me to drink and to write the Wang symbol on my daughter's forehead, one jug will be fine." "But it is the famous sun wine," the merchant said, "and I can give you a very good deal." "Sun wine?" the innkeeper said. Rindy could hear the hesitation. "Don't buy any," Rindy begged, silently trying to quiet his thumping heart. "Don't open the cart." "I can sell it in the city for the high price, but it has been so hot that I'm afraid the wine may spoil before I get there," the merchant continued. "You can see I've had to cover my cart. It's better for me to sell you some now. We can include my last night's lodging in the cost." As noiselessly as possible, Rindy scrambled to the back of the cart while the man outside agreed on a price. Rindy squeezed between the two gangs, farthest from the opening, the huge clay containers compressing him like meat in a dumpling. The cart opened, and Rindy clasped his bag close to him. feeling the hardness of his rice bowl through the cloth. The merchants and the innkeeper struggled to remove a gang, rocking the cart back and forth. Rindy scarcely breathed, and the men grunted as they pushed and shoved. Neither noticed the small figure well hidden in the shadows of the remaining gangs. With a rude curse from the merchant, the vat finally dropped safely to the ground with a thud. Both men leaned against the cart, and the sun glinted from the back of the merchant's bald, perspiring head. As the innkeeper sighed from the exertion, Rindy slowly let out his breath. Safe, Rindy thought as he listened to the men finish their deal. He closed his eyes in relief. What's that? The innkeeper said. Rindy's eyes flew open. Hands and arms reached toward him, grabbing and pulling. He squirmed and struggled. We'll come back to the picture. But there was no escape. Rindy was roughly dragged out of the cart, and soon he was staggering and squinting in the bright daylight. A stowaway, the merchant growled, his friendly manner disappearing. The merchant was wiry and sun-brown, and his hands were as strong as iron chains. One hand clamped the back of Rindy's neck in a relentless grip, while the other rose to strike him with a vicious blow. Rindy cringed, but the innkeeper grabbed the merchant's arm before it struck. He's just a boy, said the innkeeper, who was shaped a bit like a jug of wine himself. He didn't look much older than my daughter. He doesn't look much older than my daughter. You can have him then, the merchant said with an unkind laugh. He shoved Rindy to the ground as Rindy coughed up dust, and the innkeeper helped him up to his feet. The merchant quickly closed the cart, climbed into the driver's seat, and grabbed the reins of the donkey. Didn't you say your son left? He mocked. Take this one, He's included with the wine. Sorry about that. But, the innkeeper said as the wheels of the cart spit dust at him. But swiftly the merchant drove away, deaf to the innkeeper's stammers. The innkeeper gaped from the cart to the boy, and then at the cart again. The boy clung to his cloth bag, and the cart blurred into the distance. The innkeeper stared blankly at it. And when the merchant and his cart finally disappeared into the flat line of the horizon, Master Chow, the innkeeper, was still staring. Okay, so we only have 3 characters in there, and Master Chow doesn't sound familiar to me, but here's the picture. So I guess it's the sun coming up because it's morning, because it's not the moon, so it's the sun rising, and it's the merchant driving off. So it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. It's just one of her pictures that usually tells us a little bit more later on in the book. But so what do you guys think? Rindy sounds familiar. But goodness, it seems like it's been so long since I've heard that name. Does that name sound familiar to you guys? Does this chapter 1? Because usually it's what they call a teaser. They try to grab you in so you want to read the next one. So would that chapter make you want to read the next one? So put that in your comments, guys. And this may be the very last time that you actually hear my voice until next year. And a few of you aren't even coming back, and I'm so, so sad that I won't be able to see you before then. But my door is always, always open. The great thing about being in the 5th grade hall is that I get to see you guys next year. So most of you. But you and your parents have my cell phone. You've got my email. You can always, always call me if you ever need me, okay? I miss you.